So today I'm going to be demonstrating how to properly wash your hands in the workplace, as well as discuss briefly infection control, since hand washing is a form of infection control, number one form of infection control used by nurses every day, every time they go in a room. So first and foremost, just in terms of different isolation precautions that you might see in the workplace, you're going to see about 3 different kinds, which is going to consist of airborne, droplet, and contact precautions. When it comes to airborne, this is going to be diseases such as tuberculosis. And in airborne precaution situations, the patient will and is required to be in a negative pressure room, and the nurse taking care of the patient must wear a N95 mask on top of the traditional PPE that you have to wear in any room, which is gloves as well. A regular mask is not going to cut it for this type of patient. But, and then there's also the contact precautions, which is for diseases like C. diff. And instead of just the gloves for this, you have to wear a gown and gloves, and in certain situations, goggles would also be advised. And then for the droplet precautions, for things like the flu, you're going to want to wear gloves and a gown and a mask. In terms of the rooming situations, if there are no more private rooms for patients, sometimes there's cases where patients will have to be roomed together. And the requirements for that to happen is the 2 patients must have the same active infection to be roomed together. They also have to stay at least 3 feet away from each other, and also they cannot have any other existing infection that could potentially get the other patient sick. So without further ado, I'm going to demonstrate how to wash your hands properly. And so I'm going to kind of aim this towards the sink. And just to, start off by saying that whenever you go to wash your hands, you want to make sure you remove all jewelry, so wedding rings, bands, all that great stuff. I have no jewelry on my hands. And usually it's a good thing to remove watches as well. However, I don't have a watch on, and even if you do, you have the ability to move this kind of to your mid-forearm to where you don't get it wet and or contaminate your clean hands. You also want to assess your hands for any hangnails, cuts, breaks in the skin, or any place that's heavily soiled. And then once you're done that, you can turn on the water, and I'm going to keep it off for now just for speaking purposes, just so it's not hard to hear me. But when you turn on the water, you want to adjust the flow, make sure the water is warm, and then once you start washing your hands, you want to make sure to kind of keep your elbows straight and when you're actually lathering. And you're going to use about 5 milliliters or 1 teaspoon of soap each time you wash your hands. Once you get the soap on, you're going to vigorously rub your hands together for about 15 seconds. And then obviously once you're done, you're going to rinse your hands, also keeping elbows straight, and you're going to go in the down position, so the water is going to run from your wrist to your fingers. And then when you go to dry your hands, you're actually going to dry your hands the opposite way, from your fingertips to your wrist. And then you're going to turn off the faucet with the same towel that you dried your hands with. And then that'll be it. So I'm going to demonstrate real fast. And another way to easily remember how many seconds to wash your hands for, instead of counting 1 to 15 or trying to remember 1 to 15, a lot of people use the ABCs and just count them out louder in their head in order to remember how long to wash their hands for. Okay, so as you can see, I'm vigorously rubbing my hands together, both the inside and outside, between the fingers. And so I'm done, they're all clean. Now I'm going to rinse downwards, making sure I get all the soap. Alright, so now it's time to dry my hands. I'm going to grab a dry paper towel and dry from the fingers to the wrist, patting dry from the fingers down to the wrist. And then I'm going to use the same towel and turn off the sink, just like that.